Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm coming at you with an interesting video. Today I want to talk about cooking over a fire, and more specifically I want to share with you how to cook tacos over a fire. So what I'm going to do right now, I have a fire pit behind me. I'm going to go out and make a quick recon. I'm going to gather some fire material, some tinder, some small things to start my fire, and some fuel, and I'll be back. Stay with me. Okay, right now I'm looking at a lot of this dead wood here. There's all kinds of good stuff for fire material, fire starting material. There's all kinds of good stuff. This stuff is, a lot of this stuff is dead. Not the one I grabbed, but some of this stuff is dead. And so it breaks off nice and clean. You see that nice clean break, and it's really dry. And that's exactly what I need to make my fire for cooking. A lot of this stuff, you know, like a lot of these leaves and things that I'm pointing at here, this is all excellent to start the fire. This will catch a spark really well. In fact, a lot of this stuff over here, these small twigs and stuff, that's perfect for my my first layer. What I mean by that is the layer that I use after my tinder. So this will be my first section that'll catch, and then I'll put some of the little bit larger stuff on top of that, and that'll be my fire. So I'm going to continue to gather some of this wood, and what I'm doing right now is I'm just throwing it in the boat, just walking it over there. I have my boat, and I'm just kind of throwing it in the boat. I've got a little bit of everything right there. I've got some logs, I got some small stuff, and it's all dry. That's the main thing, it's all dry. So I'm going to continue to get some more fuel, and I'll see you in a minute. Well, there's a view of my wood that I have, and I'm on my boat, and I'm just paddling back towards camp with a load of wood. I know that this load of wood probably looks like a bit of an overkill, and it might be, but I come to this spot quite frequently, and I want to make sure that I have enough wood, not just for today but for the future as well. I come out here all the time, and I don't, maybe next time I come out I might not feel like doing all that wood work, you know, finding all that wood, so I just got a little bit extra today. Okay, right now you can see that I have a pile of light grass. I have the next size up. This is going to be my second set that I'm going to put on the fire once I get this grass lit. And then third, I have some small twigs that's going to go on. Then I have some small fuel, and then eventually I have some larger fuel. And it's real important, I think, to make sure that you have all this stuff separated by sizes long before you throw that first spark. It's very frustrating when you throw a spark and you don't have things in order. Then you're trying to catch up to your fire and things like that. So I always try to recommend to have all your stuff in order. I do have more wood available. It's in the boat, and I could be working on that for fuel and stuff as the fire is going. But once again, it's important to make sure you have something laid out long before you throw that first spark. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our fire started. What I have right now in my hand is I have my Becker BK2, I have my knife, and I have a ferro rod. Now the back of my blade, which is normally the portion of the blade that you would use to strike the ferro rod, Becker puts this coating on the knife so it doesn't strike a ferro rod backwards. So today I'm going to be doing it this way, even though this is not the way I would recommend. Again, I would recommend doing it this way, but what I can do to my knife, and I haven't done it yet obviously, is I could take a flat file and just file this material off. That'll expose the steel, the carbon steel, and then I can get a nice strike off of my ferro rod. So with that being said, let me put this aside. and let's work on this tinder bundle. As you can see, this is all very light, dry, thin grass, very thin material. This is going to be the very first thing that my spark is going to come in contact with. So I want to open it up and get the fibers nice and open. Make it like a little bird's nest, if you will. You see how it looks there? That's kind of what you want, like a little bit of a bird's nest. Again, I have this second set waiting for me to throw right on top of that. Okay, and then behind me I have my fuel. So let's take a look. Let's get this baby going. I'm going to take my ferro rod. Well, actually I'm going to take my knife. Kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit. What I like to do is I like to plant my knife real solid, and I like to draw my ferro rod away. I don't move the knife towards the tinder. I keep the knife stationary and I pull the ferro rod back. Okay. The reason I don't want to move my knife towards the tinder is because I don't want my knife blade to come in contact with my tinder pile and put it out. So I'm going to start lifting small amounts of this stuff right on top. I'm going to open it up, and we have fire. Behind my fire pit, I don't know if you can see it in the screen or not, but I have my fire stick. I'm going to use that so that I can work this fire from a distance. Okay, before all this stuff burns off, it's important that I start to lay out my first sticks and things of that nature onto my fire. Okay, so these are not going to be real big sticks. They're going to be fairly small, but nonetheless, they're going to be the first ones that actually catch on fire. So we want to slowly build our fire up in size as we go. So you want to start that small stuff. Once it gets burning, then you start some little bit larger stuff, and so on. It's a little bit windy today, so I might have a little bit of a challenge today, but that's okay. I'm confident that I'll have a cooking fire here in no time. I have a couple rocks right in front of my fire pit. You see them right here. I'm going to point to them. I have one here and I have one here. Those are to plug this opening. This opening here is what I'm going to use to feed my fire, because eventually I'm going to put my grid on top of those rocks, and I'm going to be using that opening again to fuel my fire. So I just slowly keep adding a little bit of fuel. And I'm trying to establish a layer of coal, which it looks like I'm doing a pretty good job. So I'll see you guys in a minute. Another thing that I want to note is there's a big difference between a campfire and a cooking fire. Right now, this fire would resemble a campfire. Here in a few minutes, I'll show you what a cooking fire should look like. Okay, I'm going to get some water in this bucket, but I want to show a simple technique that I like to use to get water into my bucket. And you might think this is crazy, but if I just dip it like this, what's going to happen is all the impurities that are floating on top of the water are going to come into my bucket. I don't want that. So what I'd rather recommend is dipping my bucket completely under the water and then removing it by pouring the impurities out. And at that point, I'll keep the amount of water that I want to cook with. Now, of course, let's not forget that You can also always run your water through a filter, some sort of napkin or some sort of material or things like that, but I'm not too worried about that today. And here we are. We're going to set this on top of the fire. This is going to start to boil this water. And again, this is a cooking fire, so I can feed it from here. Now it's important to make sure that you have good airflow on your coals underneath. I'm going to just start adding a little bit of fuel here through the bottom. You can hear that the water is already starting to heat. The wood that I'm going to add to the bottom is not necessarily too large a wood. It's generally pretty small. Things like this. I added a small rock here because this isn't level and my pot was trying to slip off, so that rock will help keep my pot from sliding off the grid. Here's my ground beef. I have it wrapped up in a towel. This is for two reasons. One, to keep it cool, to keep it frozen, and the second reason I'll talk about here in a second. Now, when it comes to this ground beef, I highly recommend that you use this 73%. You want ground beef that has a lot of fat. I'll explain why here further in the video. So I'm going to just open this up. It's still rock hard, and I've been out here all day. It's probably 1 or 2 o'clock, and this thing is still hard as a rock. So I'm going to open this up. Just like so. And I'm going to lay that down into the pot. I'm basically going to boil the ground beef. That's how I'm going to cook it. Looks like my boil went away because that thing is cold. It's like a piece of ice. So it'll take it a little time. It'll heat it all up. It'll thaw it out, and it'll get it back to cooking. So I'm going to use one hand to hold the pot, and the other hand I'm going to use with the spoon or a stick or something to try to break up this ground beef a little bit. Just kind of scraping the stuff that's thawed out, just kind of scraping it off, and it's exposing the stuff that needs cooked. So I'm just going to do that a few times. Then I'll roll it a little bit, and then I'll just keep cooking away. The main thing about cooking out here is you want to be very patient. It looks like that is good and done. Now, normally, and you know, I'm doing this more for illustration purposes, but normally I do not bring a sieve, and I don't normally bring a glass container. I brought these more for illustration purposes than anything, okay? So this is, you know, on a normal situation, again, I don't bring these two items. Normally what I would do is I would take another pot, and I would take my rag over the pot. I'd put a small dent in the middle, maybe a rock or something, a good clean rock to kind of make it dent down, and I would pour all that ground beef into this, and I would use this cloth as a filter to filter my ground beef. Okay, that's the way I would normally do it, but more for this video and to demonstrate what I'm trying to show, I brought these extra two things. I brought this sieve and I brought this glass bowl. Okay, again, this is for illustration only. So I'm still gonna run through this cloth. I'm just gonna do it with the sieve as well. So I'm gonna put my cloth like so. I'm gonna set it right on top of the sieve. And now I'm gonna go get my ground beef and I'm gonna pour it right in there. Sorry if I'm stepping in front of the camera there, folks. Okay, so I have this. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm going to just slowly pour this broth, if you will, through this filter. Okay, so I'm letting it filter. This will make sense here in a few. Pouring a little more through the filter. You can see because of the temperature of the material, because this stuff is good and hot, that it's pouring through the material fairly easily. You can also take the ground beef and start putting it in to the cloth. You know, and I'm not trying to reiterate too much, but again, on a normal situation, I would be using just a second container. Another stainless steel pot, that aluminum pot, something like that. I'm doing this just to give you guys a visual. Looks like a little piece fell here. It's okay because it fell on top of my rag. It's perfectly fine. Okay, so I'm going to let this sit for a minute and filter. And in the meantime, I'm going to take this pot that I'm holding with my hand here, the one that I'm scooping out of. I'm going to go down to the creek and I'm going to get a little bit of water. Not much, okay? I'm going to get maybe 1/4 cup of water and I'm going to put it back onto the fire and start boiling some water in here. Okay, this has had a little bit of time to cool. So what I want to do now is I want to kind of pull these corners up around this meat that's inside. And to the point where I have a little ball of meat. From here, I'm just going to kind of squeeze this ball of meat. See all that extra oil that we're coming out? It's kind of like squeezing a sponge, and we're getting that extra little bit of oil out of the meat. So we're going to have very pure meat, not much fat, more pure meat. So I'm just filtering and getting the fat out of the meat. Here, I'm going to leave it in the ball form, and I'm going to scoot over to the fire here, and once this water comes to a really good boil, I'm going to drop that ground beef right back into that pot. And there's no problem with cross-contamination, you know, as far as the river water, because it's at a boil before I put the ground beef back into it. So that's what I'm basically waiting on. I'm waiting for that water to get warm to a boil so that I can take this meat again into that water. And it looked like that water was boiling. Let me double check. See that? Got a pretty good boil. So yeah, let's go ahead and put our meat into our pot there. So where's the meat? Right here, we're taking this meat and we're moving it right into our pot. just opening up this bag, if you will. Just dropping the ground beef right into the pot. Ain't nothing fancy. So there you have it. Ground beef's going back in the pot. Now from here, I'm going to get a small package of taco seasoning, and I'm going to put that in with the meat. So there you have your ground beef. And I have my taco seasoning mix here. Just going to stir that ground beef a little bit. The purpose of the water was for the ground beef mix. In fact, how much does it call for? Where does it say that? 1 package of seasoning. 3/4 of a cup of water, I think it says. Well, of course, I don't measure anything out here. I just have a little bit of common sense, and if it looks like it's too thick, or you know, I'll add a little more water. I don't get too particular about it. So I've got my taco seasoning mix in there, and I'm just mixing that into the water, into the ground beef. Now at this point, I want to take this meat, okay, because it's done cooking at this point. It doesn't need to cook anymore. I just need to keep it warm. So if you have a lid for your pot, I'd recommend putting a lid on it and also moving it away from the fire, because we don't really need to cook it anymore. We just need to keep it warm. But I don't have a lid right now, so I'm just going to be cautious. Make sure that the dogs don't sneak over there and get it. Okay, back to this area. You can see, and the reason, like I said, that I brought this glass container was so that you can see certain things. You can see that there's a layer of fat right here, and then below this layer of fat there's water. Whoops, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get this up where it's a better view here. Okay, you see this? This top portion right here is fat, and this bottom portion is water. Well, what I want to do is I want to take this and I want to put it into the creek water where I can chill this. And the reason I want to chill this is because I'm extracting tallow from this beef fat. Okay, I'm rendering tallow. So I'll see you in a second. You see that? See those layers and how it separates? That is why I brought this glass container, to show you that. And this is another reason why I wanted to do. Okay, so there you have it. I've got my container full of tallow and water. I've got it kind of buried in the water, and I'm using this creek water as a natural method to cool this tallow. I need it to cool so that it can solidify for me. Now, if you don't want to wait all the time for this to cool, you can take like a spoon and spoon out this upper level, this tallow, and extract it and put it into a pan to cook and things like that, but we're not going to really do that today. I'm going to wait and show you how this tallow works. So it'll take a little bit of time, and in the meantime our ground beef over there is going to stay warm. No problem at all. I'm also putting a sieve on it to keep things out of it, maybe leaves flying around, whatever. Now again, these two things I normally don't bring. Normally I have my aluminum pot, which I'll show you again. Normally I would have my aluminum pot like this, and it would have the tallow in it, and it'd be doing the same thing. And instead of having a sieve, I would just put a rag over it. You know, I would have the pot buried in the sand, and I'd just leave my rag over it. That'll keep debris and all that from getting into it. So if you don't have this glass bowl and sieve like I do, and again, I'm only doing this for demonstration, for illustration for the video. So normally it would be a pot like so, okay, and it would be in there just like that. So I'm going to wait and let this thing chill, and we'll see you in a few. Okay, I would like to start trying to get set up for cooking my taco shells. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take this second container and I'm going to transfer all of my ground beef into this container. And the reason I do this is because this container is a lot bigger opening, and my little tortilla shells, they fit right in there real nice. So I'm just transferring my meat over. Now you're probably wondering, could you have just cooked in this pot to begin with? Absolutely, you could have. I just need this container, this cook pot, because it's wider. So everything's transferred. And the good thing about this new pot is it has a handle and it has a lid. So we have that and that. That'll keep that ground beef nice and warm, and it'll keep all the impurities out of it. In the meantime, let's go back to this pot. I'm going to take it to the creek and I'm going to wash it. Okay, here's my pot. I'm just coming down to the creek here. Just wooden spoon, pot, everything. Just kind of washing it out. Take a little sand and throw it inside. It doesn't hurt nothing. Just getting this thing nice and clean, because I'm going to be cooking my my corn tortillas in here pretty soon. So I just want to make sure I have a good clean pot. For those tortillas. I'm using little handfuls of sand, not dirt, but sand. They work really good for cleaning pots, especially when you get this black soot stuff all on the outside of the pans. Sand works excellent. So I got it nice and clean for the most part. Go back over here to some deeper water. Get rid of all the sand that was inside. Check and make sure I didn't miss any spots. Looks like that pot is ready to go. Nice and clean. So we're set. I'll set this upside down on that grid by the fire and it'll let this dry. Okay, this tallow has had some time to sit. Let's take a look. You can see that it has solidified. Okay, and everything underneath this white portion, this brown stuff, this is water. Everything that's white is the tallow. This is the fat. Okay, this is what we rendered. So what I want to do is I want to take my sieve once again, or my rag, or you could technically use your fingers if you wanted, but you need to extract this tallow out of this container and put it into the other one so that we can cook our corn tortillas. So I'm going to just pour it through this container, or excuse me, through this sieve, and the tallow is going to be left behind in the sieve. See that? That is pure tallow right there. And that's what we worked real hard to extract out of that meat, because again, we're going to use this to cook our tortillas. This is just beef fat and it's rendered down, and we've removed the impurities from it. And again, This is tallow. Has many uses. And that's why I wanted to make sure that in the beginning of the video that you were using, you know, the 73% ground beef, because I knew that it had a large content of fat, and I want to show you how to get this tallow out of it. So I'm going to take this fat, put it in the pan, and we're going to heat it up and cook our corn tortillas. So here's my container, here's my tallow. I'm just pouring it into this container. Let's take a look. Here it is. Right down inside there. I'm going to put this over the fire, warm it up, and we'll be cooking tortillas very shortly. Okay, there goes the tallow right over the fire. Now, one thing I want to stress right now is that the tallow does not have to be like crazy hot. It just has to be hot enough to cook the tortillas. It doesn't have to be crazy hot. You can also tell that right now the level of my pot is not very good, so I'm going to lift this section a little bit with a piece of wood in hopes to level this up a bit so that I can deep fry those tortillas. I'm also going to stoke the fire after I get it more level. Looks like this front needs to come up just a little bit. So let's try to raise that up a bit. That looks much better. Something like that. That's much better for deep frying. Still not 100%, but it's a lot closer than it was. Now I'm going to get this fire stoked a little bit, and we'll be boiling this, not boiling, but we'll be deep frying these tortillas very soon. You want to make sure that the most of your fire is directly under your pot. We don't need a bunch of fire back here because this stuff's already cooked. We want to kind of leave that be as much as we can and just focus on heating up this oil, this cooking oil. Right now you see that this oil is popping a lot, okay? It's doing that for two reasons. One, it's a little bit hot, and two, more importantly, it has water in the tallow. So I'm going to move it away from the heat a little bit, and this should reduce the amount of popping and stuff that we get. See how it settled down a little bit? Now I'm going to take these corn tortillas and I'm going to start cooking them. Set my plate right here, and make sure this is mushed down. Set my plate there, and I'm just going to start popping these babies in. Hope you have a good view there. There we go. Doesn't take much to cook these. Not much at all. That one is finished. I forgot to show you what my little trick is. It's up top, up here I have a little stick, and that's where I'm hanging my tortillas. That stick has been cleaned, and that's what my tortillas will hang on, and they will drop the tallow off of them. So that's where I put them after I bring them out of the oil. So let's cook another one. I think I'm only going to do probably 3 because it's just me. I need a little more heat, so I'm going to go back over the fire a little bit. Might need to stoke it. Just those little tiny sticks give me little tiny flames, and the result is the correct temperature for the oil. Be careful because you don't want them to stick. So I'm going to reach down, hold my spoon there, and this is going to go up on my branch. That's my second one. I got to do one more. Just going to keep spinning it around because I don't want the tortilla to get stuck since I'm not very even with my pot. Just cooking it a little bit. Looks like this one's torn a little bit, but that's okay. Shouldn't be too big of a problem. Let's flip it over. Let's cook the other side a little bit. Trying to get it to undo itself so I can cook it, but if not, that's okay. Let's pull it out, lay it over my stick. Voila, we'll do one more for good measure because I don't know if that one's going to hold up. Main thing is trying to keep this pot level, so I'm going to use my pot support here. Try to keep this oil somewhat level so I can at least float the whole tortilla during my cooking process. Looks like it's doing pretty good on this one. Let's flip this baby over. There we go. Now we're doing well. See how pretty that looks? That's a good one. The last one wasn't too good. It was all ripped and stuff. So let's pull this one out. Ooh, there we go. Right up onto my stick. And that's where they're going to dry. So let's take a look up here. That's what I have. 4 little tortillas sitting on my sticks, and no, it's not just a dirty stick. I washed those sticks in the creek. They don't have sand on them or nothing like that. I'm gonna let those dry, and we'll be working on our tortillas, our tacos soon. Okay, I just beefed up the fire a little bit to help heat this stuff up. It was already warm, but I wanted it hot, so I'm heating this up just a little bit. I'm getting ready to serve myself, so I just wanted a little bit more heat on this. I have some cheese. Unfortunately, I forgot the lettuce. I had lettuce at home, but I forgot to bring it, so oh well, no biggie. So we'll start with this one. This is the one that was broken. Just going to put a little cheese in there while the meat is heating up. I'm keeping the cheese on the plate for the most part because the plates like to blow away. It's a little bit windy today. I think it's like 19 mile-an-hour winds or something like that, they said. Number 2, right there, a little bit of, I like a lot of cheese, so I'm just adding a little bit of cheese to mine. And these tortillas, again, they were cooked using tallow, which was kind of unique. A lot of people don't really understand how to cook that way. So I'm trying to show how you can get the most out of your meat. So now this stuff is good and hot. In fact, the container was a bit warm to the touch. So Now I'm going to take some of my meat. Just put 1 scoop in each taco basically. And the rest of this meat I can pack out. Put it in a Ziploc bag or something and keep it for later. If you get a little bit that falls off, the ants love it. So there you have it, my friends. I have a little bit of iced tea that I made. I apologize for the shady camera work there. But I have 3 tacos now. And I have some iced tea that I made at the house. They would have been a little nicer if they would have had a little bit of lettuce with them. And I don't care for tomatoes. So, that's good. Let's take a bite and see how they taste. That's delicious. That's really good. So anyway, everybody, again, I'm sorry for the crazy angle. I want to say thanks for watching. I hope you got some good information out of this video. Please feel free to comment, like, share, thumbs up, subscribe. And as always, have a beautiful day, everybody. We'll see you next time. I'm going to enjoy these tacos. Bye-bye. That's really good. Later. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting for that tallow to finish, which I'm done with it, I'm going to make a small candle with this little container. So I have some wicking material. This is the kind that stands upright. And I have a little container. So I'm going to cut this wick just a little bit longer than the container, and I'm going to make a candle. Otherwise that tallow goes to waste, so might as well use it for something, right? Now I have my wick cut, and while I was on my way here I found a beer can in the river. So I'm going to take the top of this beer can off. I'm going to turn it 180 degrees. This tab here, I'm going to pull that off. This tab is what I'm going to use as my wick holder. So what I want to do is I want to basically take my finger and I want to flatten this down just like that, and I'm going to pop my wick through, hopefully. Sometimes it's easier said than done. Just try to pop my wick through. Looks like it doesn't want to cooperate. Let's try this other side. What this will do is this will hold the wick in the bottom of my container. Where's my knife? I'm going to use the point of my knife to kind of try to push this through. There we go. Looks like I have it through. Now you see how that bent up? I need to push that back down. Now this is going to be my makeshift wick holder. It's going to sit in the bottom of my little metal container, and then I'm going to pour the tallow on it and let that solidify, and hopefully I'll have a nice little candle. See you soon. Okay, what I want to do is I want to take this wick and I want to drop it down into the tallow and get a generous amount and just kind of stick this down into my container here. Hold it down a little bit. You might want to use the back of your wooden spoon. Just kind of hold it down, and then I'm going to take this over to the water and I'm going to let it cool so that it'll attach itself to the bottom of this container. Okay, here's my candle over the water, and I'm going to take this tallow and I'm just going to dunk my pot in the water over here. Hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to kind of cool it a little bit. I have in my hand I have a small stick. What this stick is going to do is it's going to be used just to set the wick on, kind of like a wick holder, just to kind of hold stuff in place. Now, when I tried to get my wick to set a second ago, I did have a little bit of water in this container. In fact, it looks like I have a little more now. I'm going to go ahead and pour that water out. I don't want water on in the bottom of my candle. So there's my wick holder. I'm going to just set that just like that. Try to get this as close to center as I can, and now I'm going to pour this tallow into this container here. This is going to make a nice little candle for me. Look at that, the perfect amount. Hopefully I'm not getting in the way of your view. So now I'm just going to let that sit. Try to make sure that the wick is going to be as straight and as close to the center as possible. And very carefully, I don't want to make any waves or anything of the water, because I don't want to disrupt what I'm working on here. So this is what it looks like. Kind of cool. Let's take another look from a different angle. I'm going to step out of the water, and hopefully I'm not making too many waves. Let's take a look. That's okay. I saw the wick fell down. That's okay. The wind. I have a good way of fixing that. Okay, nice and down here on level with it. So we're just going to set that wick down there. Get it as close to center as we can. And since we got wind and stuff like that, I'm going to just get another one. Just kind of hold it right next to it, and that'll hold that wick in place, hopefully. If not, I could use my wooden spoon, I guess, or a stick or anything. So we're just going to go right there. The main thing is we want our wick to be right up the center. I'm going to grab one more stick here. Something not crazy heavy, but something fairly heavy. Sorry about that camera work there. I'm just going to put it right there. This will kind of hold that wick in place until this baby can dry. Once it's dry, we'll have a nice little tallow candle. Here's my candle halfway during the process of finishing. It's still liquid a little bit, but it's in the process of becoming a candle. It's a beautiful day outside. I'm here enjoying my tacos, and the dog's food is on the grill. Well, there's my tallow candle. I just lit it. It's a little bit windy right now, so it's having trouble staying lit. If I try to put a little windshield around it, it's better. But when I do that, I'm getting in the way. Anyway, I just wanted to show you guys that these tallow candles aren't hard to make. They work pretty well. So, you know, you would at least have some light or something. You know, even if, you know, even if you used it to start a fire or something, it would be useful for things like that. If you didn't have a lot of wind, you could put it under a tinder pile. You know, oh, there it goes. Looks like the wind had other plans for it. Once you get the wick lit for the first time, it stays lit much easier. You know, the point is that I'm trying to make is you can use it to start other things on fire if you're trying to make a fire or something like that. Or if you had a primitive shelter, you could use it to help produce a little heat for the shelter. But nonetheless, that's the tallow candle. There's one thing that I want to specify, or that I want to stress to you guys, and that is I see a lot of people leave their campsite or their fire site and they don't take care of business like they should. And what I mean by taking care of business is I mean extinguishing their fire. You know, they might look at something like what we have right here and they might be like, oh, it'll be fine, it ain't going nowhere. You know, I just want to stress that it's very important. You know, just as important as it is to build the fire, it's important equally to extinguish it at the end of the day when you're done. So that's what I want to share with you here. I have plenty of water behind me. There's no need to let this fire go. Look at how hot those coals are. There's no need to let it go. There's no need at all. The cool thing about having coals left behind is that the next time you come out, you have a fire bed already. And those coals are easy to heat up. This is probably one of my pet peeves. One of the things that frustrates me the most is, you know, and I can't stress it enough, but I see so many people come out and they make a beautiful fire, but they don't put it out. Or the fire might be out, but they didn't do anything, you know, to extinguish the coals. And these coals, you know, it's important to put them out. I live in Arizona, and there's always people that are not taking care of their fires, and we get fire restrictions as a result of someone not taking care of their business. So my opinion on that is if everybody would take care of business, there would be no fire restrictions. Now, I'm going to take my hand and check it. If you can safely put your hand inside and go all over the place and there's no heat at all, your fire is extinguished. If those coals are still hot, now these rocks are going to stay hot, no problem there, but if these coals are still hot to the touch, you're not done. You need more water on it. Now I know, obviously, that water's not real easy to come by in a lot of areas, and I understand that, but please, just do what you can. Do the best you have with what you got. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that little tidbit in there. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video today on how to make tacos over a fire. It was a lot of fun. I had a good time. The dogs got to come out. It's always a beautiful time when you get away from, you know, everything at home and get away from your job, get away from all your stress, all your daily life, you know. So it's always a good outing to come out and do things like this. You know, I had a lot of fun today. The dogs had a lot of fun. Anyway, not to be too long-winded, I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you guys do for me. Please feel free to like this video, share it, thumbs up, and if you like the content that you see on my channel, feel free to subscribe. I'd love to have you. So until next time, have a beautiful day, and we'll see you later. Go out there and make some tacos, purify some water. Bye.